What's another problem we see with executors? Wanting to distribute out the assets way too soon. I mean, everybody wants to get the money from the estate. So there is pressure on the executor to make distributions. An executor cannot make distributions until certain steps have been completed. Those steps include, like I mentioned before, notice has to go out, and it goes out not just to the beneficiaries and the heirs at law, it goes out to the state agencies, for example. More than that, notice must go out to creditors. So creditors have a 2-year period to bring claims against a decedent's estate unless something is done to shorten that period of time. So what do we do to shorten that 2 years? We shorten it down to 4 months. How we do that is that we publish notice in the newspaper, the county newspaper where the decedent resided, and that gives notice to any creditor to say, if you have any claim against this estate, you must bring it now. And you must bring it in this very statutory formatted way. The creditors have to do it exactly right. And if they don't do that, then their claim is forever barred. And that's just within a 4-month period. I mentioned earlier that the executor needs to go through the decedent's paperwork. You're looking for bills. Are there bills? Credit card bills? Are there any recurring monthly expenses going out, for example, on cars, etc.? Or medical bills. Anybody who is what we call a reasonably ascertainable creditor, that's someone that the executor should reasonably know about, we actually need to give them direct notice of the probate and of the decedent's estate. And through that process, we again can make sure that if they're a legitimate creditor, a valid creditor, and they filed a creditor's claim, that their claim will be paid or compromised. And if that person or that creditor does not bring a claim, then again, they are forever barred. Now, why is this important? The reason it's important is the whole idea with administering an estate is that you're wrapping up the decedent's affairs. You're making sure that any claims against that decedent, any creditors, that those claims will be paid if they are valid and legitimate. Well, why is that? So that the people who are actually ultimately going to receive money from the decedent's estate is going to keep what you actually distribute to them toward the end of the process. Distribution should be made toward the end of the probate process when it comes to money. Again, the reason for that is that you've got to go through this 4-month creditors claims process and make sure all creditors are going to be paid. You don't want to distribute out money before that happens. Another type of creditor, and this often is something that people don't have on their radar, so I want to make sure that you do, is tax returns have to be filed. So an executor might be looking at the decedent's tax returns and say, oh, there wasn't a return filed last year or the year before. I should talk to the accountant, should follow up on that. Why is that? If the decedent owed taxes, those have to be paid from the decedent's estate. And not only just back taxes, in the year that the decedent died, you as the executor might have to file a tax return if any taxes are owed. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from the estate money, the decedent's money. So you're going to want to make sure that any tax liability for the year of the death is also determined and paid if it's going to be paid, or sometimes there's going to be a refund. And if there's going to be a refund, that money is going to be put in the estate account. Making distributions too soon of money puts those beneficiaries in a place where if you made those distributions too soon and you overpaid somebody, you are going to have to say, oh, can I have the money back? Well, that might be a good luck. No, you're not going to get the money back because it's already been spent by the beneficiary. So if anybody is legitimately owed money, well, who's going to be responsible for paying that? You are, and you're going to be responsible for paying it out of your own money. So don't make the mistake of making distributions of money too soon. Now, what can the executor distribute early on in the process? Usually it's the decedent's stuff. Stuff meaning, personal property, household items, those sorts of things. So if there is a will as an executor, what you're going to be looking for is there a personal property list. A personal property list allows someone to say, all right, here is my, I'll say, china set. It goes to so-and-so. Oh, I want my car to go to this other person. I want my tools to go to this other person. The stuff typically can be distributed really early on in the process. Why is that? Because typically it doesn't have a substantial value. If there is a very valuable type piece of personal property, that's another matter. But typically the stuff in the house can be distributed out. If there's any kind of firearms, that's a whole different subject. Lots of laws apply to that. So you got to be really careful about firearms and distributing those things. So estate sales are often something that an executor will have to put into place. Usually what happens before the estate sale happens or an estate sale company comes in, that the executor will allow someone to, or the beneficiaries to come in and to select among themselves the personal property items. So don't make the mistake of making distributions of cash, in particular of money, too soon.